Hi everybody, today we're going to talk about two different types of questions that you're going to see, and honestly the two most common mistakes that we're going to see on today's assignment. So by following these questions, they are not exactly the same numbers, but very, very close to the assignment that you're working on right now. This should give you a good start on a lot of the questions that you're going to see. So just remembering the steps from our notes on solving absolute value equations, we have to first make sure that the entire absolute value occupies one side of the equation completely by itself. So for example, if we look at the one on the left here, if we're just solving this equation, we'll call this question number 1. So if we're looking at number 1, we see that the absolute value is the only thing that we see on the left side of the equation. So because that's true, what that allows us to do is it allows us to split it off into two different problems that we can solve. So we can solve 2x plus 1 equals 9. We'll call this our positive side, and we can also solve the negative side of it. And the negative side, what we're going to do for that is take our 2x plus 1 and distribute a negative 1 to all of the terms, and then we keep the 9 the same. So remember, on that negative side, we have to make sure that we're only doing it to one side. We're not making both sides negative. We are only making a single side of the equation negative. So from there, reasonably straightforward solving. We're going to subtract 1 from both sides. So we'll get 2x equals 8. Divide both sides by 2. And we'll end up with one answer of x equals 4. On the second side, you have two choices. You could divide both sides by negative 1, or you could distribute negative 1 in. Both of those are totally okay. So we can get negative 2x minus 1 equals 9 here. And then continue very, very similar steps to what we did before. Minus 2x and 10, divide both sides by negative 2, and we'll get x equals negative 5. So the solutions to question number 1 are both x equals 4 and x equals negative 5. So just a quick recap, we did one version of solving where we kept everything the same, the positive side, and we did one version of solving where we distributed a negative to only one side of the equation. Now let's start on question number 2. And the key thing to note here, and in case it slipped through the cracks yesterday, is we cannot divide this into a positive and into a negative side unless the absolute value is completely alone on its own side of the equation. So our absolute value is here, it's 2x. It's just the 2x. And right now it's not alone on its own side of the equation because this positive 1 is still there. So what we need to do before we can do anything else is we actually have to move our negative 1 over. So we have the absolute value of 2x, and we have it equal to 8 here. So now 2x in the absolute value is the only thing on the left side, so now this allows us to separate it into a positive and into a negative side of the equation. So we can have 2x equals 8, and we can have negative 2x equals 8, and those are the two equations that we can solve here. So divide both sides by 2, and we'll get x equals 4. Distribute our negative in. We only have one term here, so it's just negative 2x. Divide both sides by negative 2, and we'll get x equals negative 4. So two answers for question number 2 are x equals positive 4 and x equals negative 4. What you'll realize is that while these questions look extremely similar, the placement of the absolute value actually does change the answer. While both of them do have x equals positive 4, the big difference here is in that second answer with the negative side. So be careful, make sure before you split into positive and negatives that you have an absolute value completely alone on its own side of the equation. As always, if you got questions, let us know. Thanks for watching, and good luck on your practice questions.